Hey everyone, Bill Miller here. Tonight's going to be a little short, or this morning. It's about 4 a.m. for me right now. Just finishing up, I think 19 hours worth of working here at the bar. Yeah, so I'm pretty exhausted, but just wanted to talk a little bit about or address something, I suppose something that comes up pretty much on a daily basis for me, dealing with being a former abuser. What I believe strongly in, and I have, based upon advice I got in the beginning from reading and watching these videos and stuff, is being open and honest about who you were. It's not like you go shouting it from the rooftop or whatever, but in my life, or in my world, I guess, I'm a bar owner, and I work at this bar every day, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. I'm on full display in front of everyone. Everyone knows my wife left me. The rumors are just out of control. People just love, more than anything else, to spread gossip and rumors about everyone. Especially if it's negative stuff. It just, I'm not really sure why. I don't ever really know. My wife and I talked about it all the time. But it's sometimes it gets to you a little bit. Some of the things that people say about you. No one really knows. It's not as though, I would say 90% of the stuff that they say is not true. There's some truth to some of it, like, yeah, my wife left me. Did I, just, I guess what I'm getting at, or what I want to talk about is the, when to combat all of these things, and when to, stick up for yourself, and, kind of the stigmatism that goes along with being an abusive person. What I've learned, what I've been told, what I've read, what I am living right now is being open and honest about it. While I'm not seeking anybody's approval. I would give anything in the world for my wife's approval, regarding the direction I'm heading, and all the work that I've put in and I'm putting in, and changes that I've made within myself, and how much different of a person I am today than I was a couple of months ago, in terms of being humble and maybe a lot more empathetic and kind, probably a long ways from a narcissist at this point. But how do you choose when to stick up for yourself, and when to not let it, get to you, or not even address it. What I guess I have found is being open and honest is, when people ask me about what happened, I don't go through a bunch of details and things of that nature, but I generally say, that I lost her, that I, depending on who I'm talking to, but I was emotionally abusive to her. I treated her horribly, not unknowingly, but unconsciously in so many instances, and not all instances, but I would say most. But I'm wide open, and then and I do also, I'm wide. I talk about, or I also tell people a little bit about what I'm doing to combat it. That how I've basically have been a certain way my whole life. I'm embarrassed by it. I'm ashamed of it. I wish I could have, kicked my own ass 30 years ago and put all this stuff behind me. I wish I would have seen a therapist. I wish my parents would have had me in counseling after my sister's kidnapping, or after, my dad's stuff. I wish I came across someone, or, a therapist, counselor, whatever, that knew how to be relatable for me. So I could have maybe resolved this at a much younger age. But at the same time, I'm at least now I'm proud of what I'm doing. I'm proud of the work I'm putting in. I'm not really ashamed of who I was, but no one, I can't say nobody, but unless you are similar to me, unless you have gone through, being a verbal abuser or an emotional abuser, and have, felt all the things, and made all the mistakes that I've made, it's hard for people to understand. Like, I had a guy tonight that I was talking to that I've known for 10 or 12 years, and he's like, "Why did you do that? Like, why would you do that?" It's just so simple for some people to say that, like, "Why would you do that?" Like, you love her. Like, why would you do that to her? It's hard. Like, you want to explain, like, well, because I'm emotionally immature. I never made it probably past a 10-year-old child emotionally, and as far as dealing with anger and hurt, and you want to explain all this stuff, but you can't explain it to everyone, and sometimes it sounds like you're making excuses when you blame your childhood, or when you blame the reasons that you are the way you are. It sounds like it's an excuse, and I have 100% stopped making excuses. Nothing I say, or nothing that I talk about or learn, I don't do any excuses anymore. If I know what caused me to become the way I was. I wish, there's nothing I can do about that stuff. Like, I was a young child. I mean, you put up walls, you become, you develop patterns and behaviors as a very, very young man, young child, really. And it's harder to explain why you went your whole life without figuring it out. I have no flipping idea. That's where I have the most shame, is like, why didn't I resolve it a long time ago? Like, how could I have lived this long without knowing, like, how bad I was treating people, how unfairly I was treating people. And I don't have an answer for that. It's almost as, it's like, the only time people really stop doing behaviors is if there's a dire consequence. It's one reason why most doctors believe that quitting smoking is one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do, because there's never really any big negative consequences to smoking a cigarette. Doing crack, you smoke crack, or whatever you do with crack, inhale it, or you wake up in a hospital, or you wake up in an alley somewhere, an inch from death. Yeah, that might make you, it might scare you straight. Drinking, you get a DUI, you go to jail, you got 2 years of classes, you get in an accident and hurt somebody while you're drunk or drinking. Yeah, that'll scare the shit out of you. That'll scare you straight. most things, it takes something major like that to make a change in your life. And unfortunately, I don't know that I've ever truly loved someone the way I love my wife. Or, it just didn't matter enough to me to change who I was, to force myself to look at myself in the mirror and say, who the fuck are you, and why are you this way? Like, what in the frick happened to you, and like, how could you do this? I've never, probably never loved someone enough or cared about someone enough for it to like scare me straight, like what I'm going through right now did. But anyway, it's just anyone that goes through it, there's such a stigma to being an abuser. When I talk it through, when I talk it out, which isn't, I don't go through a bunch of details, like one time I did this, one time I did that. I give a couple of generic examples as to, like how it works. And what it's kind of neat, I guess, what I've found is, I don't know, 19 out of 20 people, they gain a shit ton of respect for you, or for me, I guess I can say, just from my experience, because I'm honest about it, and I've acknowledged and admit fully who I was and how I treated my wife so poorly, and how bad it's hurt me, and what it's done to my life. Lost everything. I mean, you lose the love of your life, that's basically everything, but there is a newfound like respect when you see somebody turn such a kind of devastating thing into a life-changing, like a positive life-changing thing. And so like it makes me feel proud of myself, I guess, in that way. Doesn't get rid of the hurt, it doesn't get rid of the sadness, it doesn't mean I miss her any less. But I can sit here today and say I'm a 1,000 times better person today than I was 2 months ago. I can look at myself in the mirror and know that I honestly don't care about what people say about me now, because I know exactly who I am right now. Before I would say that, I guess, that I don't care what they say, but really, like, I can't say that I really even knew who I was, so I can't say that's not true, because I never really stopped to think about who I was or how I was. But yeah, so anyone going through this, and part of overcoming your abusive patterns is admitting that you're an abusive person, admitting that you're verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, physically abusive sometimes, whatever you are, like whatever your story is, admitting it, being out and open about it, is really important to overcoming it. And even though there's an initial stigma against you, you will see that it's very admirable to to see someone, like, I have respect for myself for doing what I'm doing, for going through what I'm going through, and not backing off or backing down or changing the rules, like the goal that I have in my brain of absolutely ridding myself of every abusive fiber in my being. I've gained respect for myself because I'm, like, here I am after a 19-hour shift, and I just, wrote a letter to my wife telling her how much I love her and how sorry I am. And I'm doing this therapy, and I'm gonna go read after this until I pass out. So the stigmas that you feel that you hear, like the stigmas that people have towards you. um, it's bothersome at first. It hurts for people to think that about you. Most people aren't going to give any, in a month they're not going to think about it again, and they're certainly not going to take the time to understand you or how abuse works. Most people are just always going to feel sorry for the person that was abused. They're never going to feel sorry for the abuser. That's just a fact of life. That's just, that just is what it is. But you do, it does, the tide changes. I don't know, that's a stupid thing. That's not how it works. I mean, that's not what I mean, but it does change. Like, at first it bothered me a lot for, to be labeled that and to admit that I'm that. But now, like, I can say that I'm a former abuser. Like, I used to be this way, I used to be that way. And this is the reason I was. And the reasons that I was, I've overcome. I've dealt with. I've processed the reasons. I've dealt with the reasons. I've overcome, the angers and the hurts. I've let those go. I've turned, some of it over to God. Some of it I understand. And so, yeah, I'm not embarrassed to say that I used to be an abuser. I am embarrassed. I'm just not. I don't let it. I don't think less of myself anymore for being a former abuser. I feel proud of myself that I overcame it, even though it's I lost my wife, and it's I'm still proud that I overcame it, and I hope to God, as long as these stupid videos are and rambling, I'd hope someone sees one and says, yeah, that's fucking me. That's me. And if I don't change, I'm going to lose my wife too. And maybe just start researching and finding out what it's going to take to change your behaviors, so you don't find yourself sitting where I'm sitting right now. And you can instead be proud that you caught it in time, and you changed your life and your behaviors and your patterns in time, and now you get to spend the rest of your life showing your wife how much you've changed and how much you love her and how great you can treat her. I still pray to God every day, and that eventually He allows her to forgive me and to spend the rest of my life adoring her and loving on her and understanding her and being her best friend and treating her amazing the way she deserves to be treated. But that's kind of up to God at this point, and I'm just going to work my ass off to get to where I need to be in case one day he blesses me with my wife back in my life. But anyway, so when you're dealing with kind of the stigma of being an abuser, don't let it get you down. Just keep your nose to the grindstone. Just keep working at it. It gets better and better. It really does. Like, I can talk freely and openly about it now and not be embarrassed, because it's something that is in the past at this point. And I feel like a lot of people end up asking me a lot of questions about it, which tells me that they've at least either been through it, or they're either, have been abused or have been abusive. Because it's crazy how many people ask me a bunch of questions about, like, well, what do you do to fix it, and how do you know, and all this stuff, and I just talk, from my perspective and stuff. But a lot of people, I feel like, are kind of, maybe learn a little bit from it. And if you are the abused one, then it's helpful to understand what the abuser, how they became that way. And if you are the abuser and you can learn a little bit from me going through this, even if it's just fucking get your shit straight before you lose her, then that's awesome. All right. And I strongly encourage every person out there to listen to Tyler Braden, Try Losing One. It is such a good song. It is such a good song. Makes me cry every time, but it's so worth it. It's a good song. All right, till next time.